Hey, Brad.
Hey, Deb.
Uh, couldn't be more excited for this episode.
And for good reason. Important topic today. We're going to talk about, can a PM make an impact in their first 90 days
Hmm.
and how to go about doing that. And I'll start with the short answer is absolutely yes. They can make a huge impact. We've seen it over and over and over again in 90 days. In some cases, you're just thrown right into the fire, which reminds me of a story of one of our recent graduates who took a role at a large financial company. And
Hmm.
within 2 months, she had maybe the most unusual assignment I've ever heard
Hmm.
for a PM. She was given full responsibility to track the metrics for her company as they ran their Super Bowl ad.
Oh, wow.
And this is within about 2 months of working there full time. They basically just said to her, we want you to track the response. We want you to figure out what metrics are important. And we want you to report that in real time to the team, including the chief marketing officer.
And did she
Ta-
come with any background in the same domain, or was it a completely new domain for her?
you wouldn't believe how different the domain was for her. The whole profession, she stepped up to the challenge, and that's what we're going to cover because it's so important and because you want to
That's
take
fantastic.
advantage
Yeah.
advantage of those situations. And really, when you have, for those who manage PMs, when you have opportunities like that, or when you
Hmm.
have when you have stars with this type of potential, you want to let them shine. And this is the story of her first, let's say, fewer than 60 days. So big stakes, big responsibility right out of the gate. And a PM can make a huge impact if they manage their first few months correctly. So that's what we will focus on. And this will be important both for new PMs, PMs taking on new roles, and those who manage and mentor PMs at the same time.
So, Brad, was that really successful for her? How did it turn
Out,
out to be?
incredibly successful. She built her reputation. Well, she built her reputation even before this, which is why she was given the opportunity. But she was able to solidify her capabilities, display what she's capable of,
Hmm.
teach other product people, especially in the marketing side, why these metrics are important. And she was immediately asked after that to help train other people in similar tasks. Like, we're talking about a true, you know, 3 years worth of career experience in
Hmm.
2 months. And it was all about taking advantage of an opportunity. But as we'll discuss, even setting yourself up to be given that opportunity.
Yeah, and that's a great segue because it's not only about the product manager, but it's also about the manager or the leader, because oftentimes it also boils down to just simply providing a platform for a product person to perform, or for any person to perform, or any employee to perform, but also to give the necessary support and lean in to actually help them lead certain aspects. But we'll talk more about that, and we'll break it down to 30, 60, and 90 days to help sort of grasp what we want to say here. Yep. And before we begin our episode, a quick reminder to all our subscribers or whoever are listening to us: please like, comment, and subscribe. And please feel free to reach us at theproductsignal@gmail.com. We are always open for any feedback, any ideas, any suggestions you might have, and we most welcome any kind of feedback. And with that, why don't we begin our episode, Brett?
Let's get into it. And for new PMs, for those mentoring new PMs, as we go through the 30, 60, 90 day goals or aspirations or planning that you ought to be thinking about, I want to give you credit, Deb, because you gave each of these periods themes as we were discussing what's important. Can you talk us through what we ought to be thinking or expecting or focusing upon in the first 30?
Happy to. Yeah. And I think the first 30 days, it has a theme of absorbing and understanding the internal product processes, the company, the culture, the people, everything. So you need to just absorb and get as much information as much as you can. And a classic product management skill set where you get all the data as much as possible before you synthesize and analyze, right? So it's just your absorb period. And 30 to 60 day is just shaping period. What I mean by shape is understanding the customers, users, current state while setting personal goals, team goals, and aligning with others, right? And the third, I think 90 days is more about demonstrating and executing. Like when I say demonstrate, obviously you'll not demonstrate like a product or a feature. Maybe you can, maybe you are thankful, like we did with the example coming at the beginning of the episode. But many times it's just demonstrating some small key capabilities. It might be very simple, a process development, an operational development, but finding that really quick wins and demonstrating your ability to execute on that. So with that, let's take a step back and maybe focus on the 30-day window. What would be an ideal, or what you should be focusing as you enter into that role?
Yeah, and you talked about it in terms of absorb, and I think that's a great way, a great phrase to capture the essence of the first 30 days. You are understanding your environment, understanding the situation that you're in, the players, the internal stakeholders especially. How does information flow? How do people interact with each other in both good ways and less productive ways? Who is influential? What are the standard steps that the PMs around you are following, and the basic way of doing things?
Yeah, and it follows very closely to what we sort of outlined in your day one checklist as well, but it takes a step maybe forward and deeper, right? And what we're trying to say here is, let's say, for an example, when you're thinking about a product or domain, you might be completely new to it. You might be very different from and sometimes it can be very overwhelming. When I started in healthcare, it was very overwhelming because I knew nothing about healthcare and I'm not from the US, right? So at that point, your only goal is how much can you lean in, how much can you listen in, and how much can you synthesize, and at least develop some fundamental understanding, right? The other thing that we were discussing was the use of AI, and everybody is using some kind of AI tool in their regular workflow these days. So maybe there are product documents, maybe there are domain documents, maybe there's industry level documents that you can pass through some LLM model or some tool that can help you quickly summarize what does it mean, and to help develop your understanding and your knowledge of it, right? Because the goal is, we are trying to balance our learning and sort of build trust and build confidence. I mean, everybody is confident, but especially in a new domain, in a new role, you always go in a little bit of, hey, I don't know what will happen if I do this. I don't know what will happen. So I think that becomes really helpful if you can sort of combine that information.
Yeah, I'm glad you focused on trust, because it's more than just knowing who your stakeholders and who your team are. It's how do they communicate? Are they informal, like using Slack all the time and sending, emojis and funny messages, or are they very formal and rigid? And like a high compliance environment might have a very different culture than something that is entrepreneurial or innovative, where speed is important. So understanding not just who you're working with, but what their motivations are, what their areas of frustration. And you mentioned the tools, and tools like AI tools, Figma, other things, but also how is information managed? Like you mentioned healthcare, like there's a lot of information that you have to be highly managed with high security and confidentiality. All of these basic ground rules are going to be different in every new role that you take.
Yeah. And adding on to that, I think what becomes really challenging is how do you take that understanding? Because what happened with me, Brad, was everybody talked in a way, or every document was written in a way with a base level of understanding that any other person whom we are engaging and talking to would have. And when you're going into a new role, you might not have that. So things might seem very confusing. Things might seem sometimes you can Google it, sometimes you can use AI tools to summarize it, but at the same time, you are starting at zero level. Just imagine you have never cooked in your life, and then you're given a recipe. Use a ladle to do this, use a spoon to do this. This is the measurement, this is the things. And it will be extremely difficult for you you'll understand the instruction, but whether you'll be able to really replicate and execute on it, I think it's really difficult. So yeah. I think it becomes really key to identify mentors and allies, maybe peers, maybe seniors. And many companies have a sort of a ramp-up plan to give you the background information, and many companies do it really well. But what goes hand in hand with it is the biggest attribute that I think any person should have is willingness to learn. So show that you're willing to learn. Show that you're willing to take that step. Show that you're willing to, like, no matter what is thrown at you, you will try to do your best. Like that kind of persona, right?
Yeah, in most new workplaces, especially for a PM who's working cross-functionally, it's almost like you're learning a new language through immersion. As you were saying that, you reminded me one of the massive ones that exists at almost every company, and you only learn it the hard way, is acronyms. Like I can't think of a single job that I've started where I didn't have to keep my own acronym dictionary. Like as I would encounter something, I know I'm going to need to know what this means later, so I better write it down in the definition. Those types of things, the faster that you immerse yourself, the faster that you, to go back to the keyword, absorb that information, the quicker you can become effective. And I think that's true in almost every industry and almost every company, unless the company is so small and new and agile that they haven't even established those norms yet. But in most cases, by the time you're taking a PM role, there's already there's a corporate culture which may be under development, but there's also a corporate language that is a barrier until it becomes second nature.
And not only the culture, but also the other part of your job is nothing to do with the job.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is you have to understand as quickly as possible who is the influential, who is the person who is always willing to help, what kind of person might have a great rapport with you or has a similar mindset at you. I think the first 30 days is just in knowing that and building those bridges, and also very importantly to know when not to overstep.
Yeah.
And understanding sort of your boundaries. And if your first 30 days you're able to figure it out, and it took me way longer than that, so that's why it's very fluid. We're not saying that by 30 days you should have an answer to this, but you should definitely begin it and make it as your goal as you go in. But understanding your boundaries, understanding people with their influencing power, and critical people who execute, demonstrate, who have a good rapport, goes a long way. When you're learning something and when you're starting off something.
Yeah, and on one hand, you don't want to be afraid to ask stupid questions, because that's how you learn the basics.
Uh-huh.
But you also don't, you want to avoid criticizing the status quo too much. Like, save that for a little bit down the road when you see a process or a way of doing things that might be inefficient or might not work or is
Or
unclear.
when maybe you have demonstrated something really critical and you have won the trust
Yeah,
of your
right,
leaders,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And the other thing added onto that is identify small wins, small improvements. I cannot tell you how much if an intern came to me and said that we could do this way in the first 7 days, impresses me. It shows me that they are not only willing to learn about something, but also trying to improve it. And most of the times, you will get that kind of response, unless you say that this is done in a very incorrect way, right? So
right.
keep asking that, but also to identify small wins, whether it's process, operational, or maybe product. But what we're trying to say is it's very broad. It can be anything. It can be as simple as rewriting a document with certain template and just showing and getting feedback on that, right?
Yeah, I think that summarizes the first 30 days pretty nicely. Why don't you take us through the theme of the second month?
Yeah, the second, I think, from 30 to 60, which is we call as a theme as shape, is the goal is that you have understood like the fundamentals of your product or domain, or maybe you're still continuing to evolve your understanding, but you have a fair bit of knowledge when someone asks you what the product is, who the real persona is, what their current state is, and what the challenges are, right? So the next one would be a much more what we say recommend is sort of have a balance between your personal goals and leveling up on your understanding of the product. What I mean by that, personal goals can be part product, part where you want to lean in, what your personal interests are, and talking to your manager, to your team about it and making it more explicit as a much more 6 months, 12 months goal. The second would be really leaning deep into if you have an opportunity to go for customer interviews or to conduct a customer interviews, to understand segments, to understand behavior, to analyze dashboards and reports, and to generate some kind of report or insights into that. So that means that you're going a level deeper, but it might not be one piece fits all. Depending on the role, depending on your product, depending on your platform, it might look very different than the other.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the product level goals, this is a period where, okay, first month you've kind of learned the basic how to survive rules within the company. Now you want to understand the customers. You want to understand, are we trying to grow within our current segments? Are we trying to reach new segments? Are we improving upon existing products? Is there a portfolio that is the bigger picture goal? All these things to understand, sort of, you're beginning to understand strategy, which is a step beyond just understanding how the company works. And that can help lead you to realize internally within yourself where your gaps might exist. And that's part of what we mean by understanding your personal goals. Like, maybe I'm not so strong at design, but I'm going to need to grow in that dimension in order to truly achieve the product market fit, or understand which features are most important, these types of things. This is an area where you're moving away from just tactical day-to-day tasks and beginning to form both a personal development strategy and understand how to begin forming a bigger picture strategy for the product itself.
And it's built on a lot of foundations of what you grow from day 1 to day 30th, but I think I'll just call out a couple here. When you're thinking about your personal goals, it should be partly based on where you want to go as an individual, and partly how much can you lean in with the team, right? Because it demonstrates a really leaning in the team by taking in more work, or like whatever it is, like, however you think it is important. And it is based fundamentally on understanding the people, or the trust factor that you have developed over the first 30 days, and really understanding the culture of the team, of the org, of the company. Right? So once you understand those pieces and you try to stitch those pieces, the more personal goals look very diverging, it is more beneficial for you. Diverging in the sense that purely yourself, second benefiting more towards a team, or towards a product, or towards a company, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why it is important is because you are there to create business value for the organization, right? The more you understand, the more you demonstrate that early on in your conversation, it puts another layer of really developing goodwill with your manager or your leaders. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I'd add that by the end of this 60 days, you should have a pretty solid understanding of your own products. And that can often mean dogfooding it, using your own product, and understanding the use cases in which your different personas and different types of users are using it. But also just, what about it frustrates me when I use it? What about it would I like to see change? And you don't design based on that, but you get an understanding of the experience and empathy for what real users, paying users, are experiencing at the same time.
Yeah, and adding on to that, if you feel that something is really good or something is not up to the mark, have discussion with people across your team to get more understanding, and then slowly also give your feedback as a constructive feedback, to have an open discussion about it. Because the more, to your point, Brad, what I think is, you have to show that you're willing to learn. You have to learn. You have to use it. You have to have a good understanding. But whatever feedback you have, you need to have that open discussion and build that level of trust with your team members, that, hey, this guy knows that there is a problem with the product, that there's the quality of the product or that experience is not good enough, but he will come to us and have a discussion and try to understand, rather than go on top of our head to pinpoint something.
No, go on.
And the last thing I would say is that have small wins. You don't need to win big. Just keep on demonstrating that you can execute not only as a product manager, but as a great team player, or as a great team member, right? Whether that's taking up tasks which are not general to your role, or signing up for things that nobody else signs up. Sometimes I have to explain this, Brad. I think many times we feel like if you're a product manager, 100% of what we do is actually product management. It's not that, and we love 100% of what we do. It's not that. Every job comes with certain kind of roles and responsibilities, and it has drawbacks. It has its own challenges, and sometimes it just helps to take to volunteer for something and to do and execute that. It goes a long way, especially between 30 to 60 days when you've started to develop that trust.
Yeah, by the end of 2 months, the people around you will know whether you hustle. They'll know whether you can accomplish something independently, and that's like the perfect lead into month number 3, the up to the 90th day.
Yeah, which is the theme is execute or demonstrate, right? And I think by this time, the goal is that you will have understood the org structure, who are the key players, how the decision making happens, and the influence and reach. If you have not, sometimes in a big organizations, you don't have that kind of exposure or time with individual leaders or executives, but at least you will have an understanding of the processes surrounding that. But it's also a good segue to start measuring how you are tracking against your own goals.
Yeah, and among those ought to be, by this point and during this time period, you are ready and capable, or ought to be ready and capable, to start leading things and like calling your own meetings when necessary, and not just taking a back seat in every situation, initiating discussions, proposing solutions and decisions, and knowing how to acquire data, who in the organization can help you with data, or depending on the way that the roles are divided, starting to truly be that cross-functional leader where, okay, I'm playing quarterback now, and I know what's needed. I can start to bring it together. I can ask follow-up questions and difficult questions and strategic questions, and I can also, maybe this is the early phase, especially for younger PMs or people who haven't been in roles like this before, I can start to bring that information together and begin to present it upward and outward, and really get into that critical, like a lot of people describe product management as being able to explain the why or articulate the why. Like this is when the pieces are coming together and you're getting into that position and that momentum where this is just becoming second nature for you.
Yeah, and added on to that, I think great product person or any team player who comes to a team, you have to start showing your individualistic style by the end of, let's say, 60 to 90 days. Yes, if you're in a small company, in a small startup, it becomes imperative from day one because everything is crappy. But sometimes in large organization, it takes time to build trust, it takes time to understand the processes, and you have to go through one cycle or one iteration of maybe a sprint cycle, maybe a development cycle, whatever you call it, right? But at this time, I think it becomes really critical that the team recognizes that there's an individualistic style of how you do things. It can be as simple as writing a product's requirement document. It can be as simple as developing an interview script. It might be, and also it can also be how you perform your data analysis and capture the insights, right? That's more like very product heavy. Sometimes it can also be you have developed a niche understanding on the data that has already been collected and trying to present it or conveying that to your executive leadership or your team in a very different way. So I think the more you start showing that, the more you'd start to differentiate with other PMs or other people in the team, and people now recognize the unique value that you bring to the team. Right?
Definitely, yeah, and you've kind of solidified partially your reputation, but also your baseline capabilities, and that sets you up to plan your career into the more distant future, which is really, I think, the 90-day mark is about when you should be thinking about this is my baseline, this is where I stand, and these are the things I need to do to succeed and excel at my current level and begin getting ready for the future. It sounds early, but back to the point, you can make a big impact in 90 days.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is this is probably the time when you can start taking risks and hedging bets. What I mean by that is, given that you have a fair bit of understanding, given that, yes, you can be very well wrong in, let's say, you're signing up for a product feature build or a product feature development in a specific timeline, that's fine. But unless you take a risk, which should be calculated, it should not be like blindly taking a risk and signing up for it. You have to start going from willingness to learn to person who is willing to take the risk and trying to demonstrate, right? And it should go hand in hand with, let's say, where you want to see yourself 6 months from now, right?
Yeah.
How you should be building towards it. Because as I think of great product leaders or senior executive leaders, they have a very good strategic thinking. They make the decision making on certain parameters, and it's always weighed against the risk versus the time you have to collect the data, right? So if that is your goal, you have to sort of start to build the pieces from 90 days onwards into an organization.
Yeah, and I'll soften that a little bit. Just a second opinion. Like, some people will hear risk and it's an easy word to either overinterpret or underinterpret or be intimidated by.
Fair.
Like that also means designing experiments, testing prototypes, things that consume resources and move you forward, but also like you said, the risk shouldn't be silly or stupid. The risk can be a live experiment. In boxing, there's a phrase, I never lose, I either win or I learn, right? Uh-huh. So risky endeavors when failed can still be learning opportunities.
Added on to that, what I feel is it's a balance between showing your individualistic style and maybe bringing in something new, or signing up for something new.
Yeah.
Even though deep down, you might not be fully prepared for it.
And that's psychologically or emotionally risky.
Yes. So for me, if I'm jumping into healthcare for the first time in 60 days, I've been given a chance to underwrite a company that's doing this product, and this is what they intend to do, and understanding that pieces. I think I have a fair bit of idea in 60 to 90 days. I would still sign up for it. But the way I'll try to execute on it is by talking to all the other seasoned people and really getting into doing it my own way, but also demonstrating that, hey, I'm ready to evaluate this opportunity or to develop this product feature.
Yeah.
But with that, anything else you want to suggest to our listeners today, Brett?
Well, I'd start by just summarizing. Like, the first 30 days, learn the ground rules, learn the corporate culture, absorb, to use your phrase, and which I love. The next 30, the first 60 days, you should be understanding, basically shaping your understanding of the users, the product, your own baseline skills and position. And then by the 90th day, you should be ready to lead and step out on a limb and make decisions, initiate these types of things. Did I capture that pretty well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the goal is to show that you're a strategic thinker and a team player. And I think you'll slowly get started and do it. It again, like we discussed in our previous episodes, it's a very, very confusing job, and the role is also very, very confusing, and it all depends. But that's true. But the foundations of what we are talking here doesn't change.
Yeah. And by the 90th day, you should be comfortable with chaos.
I think you should be comfortable with chaos since day one.
Yeah. Or before you even apply. Don't apply if you're not if you can't become comfortable with chaos.
Yeah. With that, I think as we had to wrap up our episode, any takeaways, Brad, for our listeners?
Yeah, this is a very actionable episode for anybody that's a young PM, or anybody that's starting in a new PM role, maybe at a new company. This is something that you can sketch out yourself. Put a plan together, write it down, make sure you're covering the bases on your day-to-day evolution and progression. And then for those people who are mentors to young PMs or managers of PMs, this is something that you can help them progress. You can create a framework of these things and help measure their progression through the first initiation period.
Yep. And with that, it's a wrap. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on wherever you're catching us. And please feel free to reach out at theproductsignal@gmail.com. Thank you.
Cheers.